Hi, I'm John Waterhouse, and this is Weekday Wisdom. My question for you today is, where do you find beauty? Now, our culture reveres beauty, but it's physical beauty that is most always being talked about. And that's not what I'm talking about today. That's not what I want to share with you. But I do want to share um, a story that is not mine, but it's a beautiful story, and I'm sure that you'll find it as amazing as I do. This is how it goes. Several years ago, my family and I lived in a house that was directly across the street from the clinic entrance to Johns Hopkins University Hospital in Baltimore. We lived downstairs and rented the upstairs rooms to outpatients when they would come to the clinic. One summer evening, as I was fixing supper, there was a knock on the door. I opened to see who it was, and it was a truly awful-looking man. Well, he's hardly taller than my 8-year-old, I thought, as I stared at his stooped, shriveled body. Even more disturbing was his face. It was lopsided from swelling, red and raw. Yet his voice was most pleasant as he said, "Good evening. I've come to see if I can rent a room for the night. I came for a treatment this morning from the Eastern Shore, and there's no bus till morning." He told me he'd been hunting for a room since early afternoon with no success. No one seems to have a room. I guess it's my face. I know it looks terrible, but my doctor says with a few more treatments. For a moment, I hesitated, but his next words convinced me. I would sleep in the rocking chair here on the front porch. My bus leaves early in the morning. I told him we would find him a bed, but to rest on the porch until I had time to prepare space for him. I then went back inside and finished getting supper together. When our meal was ready, I asked the old man if he would like to join us. He replied, "No, thank you. I have plenty," as he held up a brown paper sack. When I had finished the dishes, I went out on the front porch to sit and talk with him. During the few minutes we shared, he told me that his oversized heart had crowded his body, his tiny body, all of his life. He told me he fished for a living to support his daughter, his 5 grandchildren, and her husband, who had become totally disabled from a severe back injury. He didn't tell it in a way of complaining. In fact, every other sentence was prefaced with expressions of gratitude for all the blessings of his life. He was grateful that he had no pain accompanying his disease, which was apparently a form of skin cancer, and he seemed exceedingly grateful to have the strength to keep going. At bedtime, we put up a camp cot in the children's room. When I got up the next morning, he had placed the bed linens neatly folded on the bed, and he had gone out to sit on the front porch until it was time for his bus. I invited him to join us for breakfast, but he declined. He did, however, just before leaving for his bus, ask what he called a great favor. "Could I please come back and stay with you again the next time I have a treatment? I won't put you out a bit. I can sleep fine in a chair." He paused for a moment, then added, "Your children made me feel so welcome, and so at home. Grown-ups are bothered by my face, but children don't seem to mind." I told him he was more than welcome to come again. And on his next trip, he arrived a little after 7 in the morning. As a gift, he brought a big fish and a quart of large oysters, larger than any I had ever seen before. You see, he said he had shucked them in the morning before he left, and that they were nice and fresh. I knew his bus left at 4 a.m., and I wondered when he had time to get up and do all this for us. He came many more times to stay with us overnight, and there was never a time when he did not bring us fish or oysters or vegetables from his garden. Other times we received packages in the mail, always by next day delivery, fresh fish and oysters packed in ice with fresh young spinach or kale, every leaf carefully washed. Knowing that he had to walk 3 miles to mail these, and knowing how little money he had, made these gifts so much more precious. When I received these little remembrances, I often thought of a comment our next door neighbor had made after that first time that he stayed with us. "Did you keep that awful looking man last night? I turned him away. You can lose rumors by putting up such people." Maybe we did lose a rumor once or twice, but oh, If only they could have known him. Perhaps their illnesses would have been easier to bear. I know our family will always be grateful for having known him. From him, we learned what is important, how important it is to accept the difficulties of our life without complaining, and how important it is to give extra gratitude for the good in our lives. Recently, I visited a friend who is a master gardener and has a beautiful greenhouse and garden. As she showed me her beautiful flowering plants, we came upon the most beautiful one of all, a golden chrysanthemum bursting with blooms. To my surprise, it was growing in an old, dented, rusty bucket. I thought to myself, if this were my plant, I'd put it in the loveliest container I had. But my friend changed my mind. She said I ran short of pots, and knowing how beautiful this one would be, I thought it would be okay to start out in an old pail. It's just for a little while until I can put it in the garden. She must have been wondering why I laughed with such delight. I was imagining the scene involving the spirit of my little fisherman friend preparing to enter life on this planet. I imagined that the spirit being would know just how to live in a small, challenging body and how to navigate a life with so many seemingly difficult conditions. Perhaps the greatest truth was that in the celestial garden of all souls, he would be a towering presence that would go well with an oversized heart. Many of these things are not relevant in the world of the infinite. While people look at outward appearances, the greater knowing comes from looking inward to the quality of another's heart. To me, this story is the perfect example of the beauty that we should be looking for in life. It certainly touches my heart, and I hope it does the same for you. Now go out and have a magnificent day. God bless you.